So, first of all, how many of you in the audience have an iPhone right now in your hands? So many. So chances are, if you have an iPhone, the chances are that since last week, your communications are going to be secure by something called post-quantum cryptography, under the promise of that securing your communications from a quantum computer, decrypting and hacking your messages in 5 to 15 years' time. Now, what that does even mean? The truth is that quantum technologies are having an impact right now, today, in our daily lives. But most of us don't even know why our countries are so heavily rushing into investing and deploying quantum technologies, and we don't even know what kind of impact quantum technologies are going to have in our lives. So, to help us today with that, we are welcoming on stage our panels for today. Kelly Richdale, please come on stage. Kelly is a senior advisor at SandboxAQ, and she's also a quantum fellow at the World Economic Forum. So, welcome, Kelly.
Nice to meet you all.
Duncan Jones, please join us on stage. Duncan is head of cybersecurity at a company called Quantinuum. He's got much to tell us about quantum. And last but not least, Lory Thorpe, who is a, hi Lory, senior advisor at IBM and chair of the post-quantum telco network at the GSMA.
I'm
right?
impressed.
We did it. So welcome you all to Unleashing the Quantum Advantage. If we don't know what quantum even means, let's start with that. So, all invited in here, what on earth is the quantum advantage? Maybe Lory, want to start?
Sure. So we often hear about quantum in a lot of different contexts. So I'm going to start with quantum computing, where we effectively leverage quantum mechanics to get a computational advantage over and above what we can get with classical computing. So when we talk about quantum advantage, effectively it's the ability to address problems, difficult problems that we can't address with the capabilities we have today. From an IBM perspective, our focus is, our mission statement and our focus is very much around bringing useful quantum computing to the world. And the way we look at doing that is starting with what we've announced as the era of quantum utility, which is starting to experiment with quantum capabilities that allow us to address and to pilot some use cases that will lead us then to quantum advantage and to a quantum-centric supercomputing. But this is just one part of the quantum story, and I wanted to hand over to Kelly to talk about some of the other aspects.
So I think when we talk about quantum, what is very important to understand is that a lot of the quantum effects are being used today. So for example, if I had a laser pointer here, we would actually be using an understanding of the quantum mechanical properties of photons, single light particles, in order to direct the beam. Quantum particles like electrons and photons, the latest quantum revolution, if you like, what we call the third quantum revolution, is our ability to harness the effects of those photons, those electrons, on a single particle level. And that is where this new quantum revolution is happening. One of the challenges that IBM and other quantum computing players have is the fact that quantum is so sensitive that it's very difficult to solve the error correction problems, and I'm sure Lory will talk about that later. But what if you turn that on its head? What if you actually use this unbelievable sensitivity of the quantum sensors in order to actually measure things that traditionally couldn't be measured, or see things that traditionally couldn't be seen by the human eye? And so if we look, there's a whole other sector of quantum technologies called quantum sensing and quantum imaging. And I'll talk about some of the use cases of those afterwards that SandboxAQ is doing. But being able to sense minor changes in the Earth's magnetic field, or to be able to measure the heartbeat in a way that hasn't been done before. Quantum gravitometers to be able to measure what is underneath the Earth so that you don't have to have your construction companies tearing up the road and leaving it for months when you need to change or find a burst water main, for example. There are many different applications where we can dramatically improve the results over what we see today. And when we talk in the quantum sensing world of quantum advantage, what do we mean? Well, it's almost anything that can measure something smaller, more efficiently, faster, with higher accuracy, or with less energy consumption than previous classical examples today.
Wow, so seeing what cannot be seen, measuring what cannot be measured. What else, Duncan?
So I think there's probably two things I would add here. The first is that as we're talking about the topic of quantum advantage, we can already see that there's some very different areas in which we can expect advantage from quantum. But I think it's also important to view this as a continuum. Now confusingly I have to say Quantinuum. So Quantinuum is also a quantum computing company. So when we speak to people about what quantum advantage means, we try to encourage people to think of this as a roadmap ahead, where for different use cases, we're going to see advantages arriving at different times. So it's not that we all have to sit here for 10 or 15 years until quantum computers are powerful enough to break cryptography. That's not also the moment that we see utility in the real world. I would also suggest that there's another whole area of quantum advantage that I find very interesting, which is in the field of cryptography. And here we're looking for advantages over traditional approaches where we can actually reduce risks by relying upon not necessarily complex mathematics, but actually relying upon the laws of physics to provide a reduction in cybersecurity risk. So I think that's the nearest term quantum advantage, because it's actually here today. So if you were to ask what is the one thing we can do today with a quantum computer that is superior to what we can do with a traditional computer, the answer today would be in the field of cryptography, and specifically in the field of randomness generation.
Okay, so let's delve into that. Let's delve into the practical applications and use cases of quantum. Measure what cannot be measured, see what cannot be seen, optimize for our biggest problems, including energy efficiency and optimization. Who wants to start? Maybe Lory?
I can make a start. I think picking up on what you were saying about how we can start to leverage these capabilities, and we don't need to wait for perfect, and we don't need to necessarily wait for the technology to be fully mature. In fact, I think that is maybe one of the misconceptions that we need to sit back and wait for somebody else to be doing it. And actually what we need is a cooperation across the different disciplines, and bringing together the right ecosystem to actually leverage the capabilities that we have today, which we know are maturing, and we know that there's progress being made almost on a daily basis, but also then bringing together the use cases that we want to address. And we're already doing that across many different sectors. As an example, with life sciences, we have a cooperation in place with Cleveland Clinic, with Moderna. We're looking at material science, again, working with Boeing, working with Mercedes, with Bosch. And I think it's really, really critical that we actually do put that effort into bringing together both the problem and the solution to accelerate quantum advantage and the utility of and really be able to leverage the potential of this amazing technology.
I think that's also very interesting and important, is that some of the first applications, or some of the most key applications, will be around material science on the quantum side. specifically around quantum computing. There are also, even before quantum computers come out, I think there are also very interesting applications to look at. So in the combination of AI and quantum, and this is a whole new field, so Sandbox is called SandboxAQ, the A for AI and the Q for quantum. And even before quantum computing comes out with that real leap in advantage, it's possible to combine the two together. AI, where you take the data, let's take the area of pharma or drug discovery. And so you take all of the AI data which is out there, which is previously tested results through drug trials, etc. Drug trials, notoriously inefficient. About 80% of them fail at the very last moment. Billions lost, many lives not saved until we can find better ways of targeting proteins, etc., that can solve medical challenges without the toxicity. But if you then combine that AI with a quantum-inspired approach on GPUs or tensor processing units, etc., these vast arrays of classical computing capabilities, you can actually get, by understanding the shape of the quantum particle, you can actually have a quantum-inspired approach that runs on classical supercomputing GPU arrays, etc., that can actually provide better results over today's purely classical or AI-driven approaches. So I think an area which is really interesting in the future is combining AI and quantum together to get the advantages from both. And of course, AI as machine learning will be on steroids when the quantum computers come out in their full glory. So
I think you're right. I mean, ultimately, it is about the progression of ultimately supercomputing and using all of the tools that we have at our disposal to be able to progress that.
Yeah.
I think maybe the other thing to highlight is the with previous generation of computing, mainframes were only available to a very small group of people, but actually one of the things that we're focused on as IBM is democratizing access to quantum computing to actually enable some of this exploration. And we're doing that by making quantum computers available on the cloud. So we've been doing that over the last few years, and that has helped to sort of support this exploration process, but also to support the skills that need to be developed to accelerate the potential.
That's a very interesting thing for you to say, Lory, because in the process of developing quantum capacities by spearheading companies like SandboxAQ and IBM, you're actually democratizing access to quantum computing through, for example, cloud-based quantum. Exactly. That's a very interesting thing to do. Putting computing aside, or maybe including computer, Duncan, what about the other use cases on quantum? What about cybersecurity, cryptography, encryption, all the buzz that we're overhearing in the media?
So I think, actually, Kelly, you made a very good point, which I want to just re-emphasize. I think one of the misconceptions about quantum advantage is that as quantum begins to bring benefits to a sector, we're going to wholeheartedly replace all of our classical computers with quantum computers. And in fact, the future for some time to come, if not indefinitely, will be a hybrid between tasks that still belong on classical hardware and parts of those tasks that we can move to quantum to achieve some sort of advantage. And to put some sort of scale on this, I mean, in the next, let's say, 6 months, we're probably going to be at a stage where quantum computers will be able to complete some tasks faster than supercomputers can. So we're going to see this advantage rolling out over the years ahead. But I think cybersecurity is a great example of a place where we can take part of the problem, so not the whole thing, but we can take a part and we can do a better job if we use quantum technology. So a specific example for this, if you think about the encryption that we use every day in our clouds, in our computers, in our phones even, at the heart of that encryption, we're relying on random data to keep us safe. And your system is defended against nation-state attackers if those attackers cannot in any sense predict the randomness that you're using in your systems. Well, that's a perfect example of a very sort of specific use case where we can turn to quantum computing and quantum technology more generally to solve. because at the heart of quantum physics is this idea of genuine, provable, unpredictable data. And so this is something that is actually now, we at Quantinuum, we've been focusing on this for a little while. We launched a product called Quantum Origin that does exactly this. So it's an example of, I think, a roadmap of advantages in cryptography, but actually they're starting today. And then looking slightly longer term, so maybe we sort of look at both ends of the spectrum. So if today is all about cryptography, maybe what's further down the line, I think one of the more interesting use cases that we're looking at in Quantinuum is in the field of language processing, where we believe that there are some real parallels between how language is structured and how it can be fundamentally understood by computers, and actually how quantum mechanics works. And so the ability to express language in terms of quantum circuits sounds incredibly far-fetched, but actually looks like it could be a really fruitful avenue of research. But that's an example of something that might take 10 plus years to reach fruition, I think.
I'd love to come out with another example around the quantum applications. So there are some applications already which are beginning to be out there and which have been hitting the headlines actually for a number of reasons. I don't know if you know, if any of you took a long-haul flight to come to Barcelona, some of you flying over the Pacific, there is systematic jamming of GPS now. And IATA, which is basically the group of airlines who all come together to standardize technologies being used, have put out a call for improvement in navigation devices, because over war zones, like even over areas of geopolitical challenge, let's say like Taiwan, certainly over the Ukraine, GPS is being systematically denied, even in commercial airlines. And so there are new technologies coming out like quantum navigation. And you can imagine using, it can be OPM, it can be nitrogen vacancy diamond, but basically being able to measure minute changes in the magnetic field of the Earth. And by understanding that, you can actually start to navigate like whales or birds do. Now, prior to that, you actually have to map out the magnetic map of the world. So, you can see ourselves, we see ourselves a bit like Magellan going and discovering this new cartography of the world in magnetic form. And a lot of this has already been done. And that's an underlying quantum sensor technology. The same type of technology can also be used in cardiograms or brain scans. So for example, I'm sure some of you have been in MRIs, this magnetic resonance imaging devices. They're huge. They're cryogenically cooled. You have to be wheeled to them, and then you get enveloped in this huge MRI. But with today's combination of quantum and AI, you can actually have handheld, basically magnetocardiograms that can, because the AI algorithms are so powerful now, you can have a quantum device which is measuring the magnetic imaging of the heart, the magnetic signal of the heart or the brain, to figure out exactly what's going on and be part of the diagnostic process. But the AI has to be strong, because typically you needed to reduce the noise to signal ratio through cooling them, cryogenically cooling them, and putting them in a Faraday cage. And again, today the AI is so powerful that you can get those same, you can improve the signal to noise ratio and turn it into a valid medical diagnostic device without this huge cooling element and without being in a Faraday cage. So you will have these handheld magnetic resonance devices or magnetic imaging devices that will be able to improve medical diagnostics. So these are just some of the areas where quantum is informing and impacting the lives of sort of everyday citizens. This is not some pipe dream happening in the future, which I think those are really interesting real-life applications that will impact us.
Definitely. I mean, to put it in a headline, quantum could solve the actual challenges in neurotechnologies. I mean, neurotechnologies are all over the news because of Elon Musk's Neuralink achievement, and the development of quantum technologies can go where AI alone cannot go. But what you're saying here is that we can also solve the ethical compass when we're in a war zone, trying to target our targets, and we're also trying to solve in crypto, and also we could actually solve the actual challenges that we have with large language models by applying quantum. So that's very interesting. That's very interesting. The future, looking ahead, it really looks great. So now tell me, knowing what the quantum advantage mostly is, which is augmenting our capacities and really helping solve society's grandest challenges, knowing about the use cases which cover almost every sector, including the public sector and our daily lives, knowing all of that and being this a nascent industry, what do you need to keep going to further this advancement ahead?
Well, I mean, let's bring it back, since we're at MWC, let's bring it back to telecommunications. And we are now looking at what are the potential problems that we can look at solving in the telecommunication space, and in particular around optimization, so quantum optimization, quantum machine learning, that can help us to make the networks of the future better. And this is something that is nascent, so obviously there's a lot of work to do, but I think it's really about how we leverage the potential of quantum to make future networks better than they are today, and potentially maybe easier to manage, easier to evolve. So this is something that we are actively looking at now, and also working with some of the standards organizations to explore further. And we see a lot of potential there that we're quite excited about.
Okay, so the future looks hybrid. I mean, in this transition time, you as perhaps innovators of the quantum industry, you need to collaborate. Hybrid, quantum classical computing, hybrid, quantum classical networks. What else?
Well, I would say I would build slightly upon the hybrid quantum classical networks. So in today's world, if you're sending data, personally identifiable information, intellectual property over the network, or even storing it in a data at rest scenario, you need to be able to encrypt that. You need to be able to ensure that that data is protected. And there are different flavors, and these will also exist in a hybrid environment. You've got post-quantum cryptographic standards that are coming out, and there are GSMA, post-quantum networking group that we're involved in and which Lory chairs, looking at how to improve the cryptographic algorithms to be resistant against attacks by quantum computers. But you will also have hybrid environments which work on the layer one, so the actual layers that the telcos control, which will be quantum key distribution, which will also be future quantum networks. And you can think of entangled photons with the strange quantum mechanical effects that will travel along special quantum internet, I hate that word, quantum networks that will link quantum computers and enable a distributed quantum computing, wide-scale quantum computing networks. What I would say is possibly a call to action to the entire telco industry. In fact, every policymaker in government and every board level is that companies need to have a future technology strategy. There needs to be a strategy for immediate risk management of the increasing cybersecurity threats that are coming out, fueled by AI, fueled by quantum in the future. Even now, because of the download now, decrypt later threat, there needs to be a strategy around AI and quantum, and this needs to be at the board level, this level of quantum disruption. We talk now about the quantum economy. It is a fundamental technology disruption that will disrupt every single industry. And if those industries, whether it's the telcos or the telcos' customers, don't have a strategy on how to adapt and manage and excel in the quantum economy, that is something which is very, very dangerous to the future strategy. So it's really a call to action to think about the quantum strategy for your company.
And also for nation states and countries.
Absolutely.
Definitely, because quantum is going to have an impact. It's like the Charles Dickens' Tale of Two Cities. Quantum is both a quantum threat, and also it can bring the quantum advantage we're speaking about. So it's very important also to have a national quantum strategy. I think you guys were involved in the white paper from the World Economic Forum named Quantum Economy Blueprint.
That's absolutely right. So we co-wrote it together. SandboxAQ and IBM co-wrote it. And it's basically a blueprint with a toolkit for policymakers and industry as well, but primarily government policymakers on how to develop a quantum strategy. And more than anything as well, it's also providing a guide to the global south on how to participate in the quantum economy. Because what we've seen is the digital divide exists, the AI divide is worse, and the quantum divide could potentially be off the charts. And every country needs to participate in the quantum economy, whether it's providing adjacent technologies, whether it's actually, not everybody has to build a quantum computer. Everybody needs to have access to that and access into the quantum economy. So would encourage you to read that. It's quite a hefty read at 50 pages.
It's a good one.
I think just picking up on the strategy piece, the going back to the skills, I think that's the other aspect that, again, addresses the digital divide, addresses basically, we want to build these capabilities. We know that there will be a shortage of capabilities, so this needs to be part of the strategy of enterprises, but also the strategy of governments to ensure that we have a pipeline that is looking sort of 10, 20, 30 years in the future. So we need to be looking at this a lot more strategically than potentially we have been previously.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think there is this mistaken belief amongst some organizations that they can just watch with interest as quantum begins to unfold. And then in 3 or 4 years' time, when it feels about right, they're just going to step in and start to gain some of the advantage. And there's a reason why large organizations, whether it's banks like JPMC or Airbus or BMW, or all these other companies that are looking at quantum now, it's because of all of this. They recognize that you can't sit back and then in 5 years expect to have the talent available, the skills available in your organization, and even, frankly, the access to the hardware itself. I mean, IBM and Quantinuum, other companies make quantum computers available via the cloud, but there's only so many of them, and there's a long queue for people who want to use them. So I guess my kind of call to action to people in the audience would be, if you've managed to follow any of this, because we've covered so many quantum-related topics, please do go away and consider whether you have a quantum strategy. And if you don't, start thinking about it now, because your competitors surely are. And if you sit back and wait, it might be potentially a fatal mistake, I guess.
I mean, I guess the call to action is get involved.
Yes.
Start to look at what is it that a quantum can do for you, and also how you can start to build out the capabilities, what problems it can solve. And I think it's important that this isn't sort of it isn't considered the remit of just a few people. It needs to bring together the full ecosystem.
Okay, so get involved in developing, designing, being impacted by quantum technologies in any way you can from now on. Thank you very much to the panelists for being here with us. We hope it kickstarted a curiosity that doesn't end today in this panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.